My Mill leaned in close at my own wedding reception and whispered, "Enjoy tonight, sweetheart. It's the last time my son will ever choose you." I stood frozen in my wedding dress while she walked away smiling, her heels clicking on the polished floor of the reception hall. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Did she really just say that? On my wedding day? I blinked a few times, trying to process what had just happened, wondering if maybe I had too much champagne, or if I had somehow misheard her. But no, I knew what I heard. She told me this was the last time her son would ever choose me. The woman had looked me right in the eyes and smiled like she was giving me a compliment instead of a threat. I felt my hands start to shake and I gripped my bouquet tighter, the stems digging into my palms. That's when Kent appeared at my side, his face all happy and glowing from dancing with his cousins. "Hey, you okay?" he asked, putting his arm around me. "You look kind of pale." I turned to him and tried to find the words. "Your mom," I said, my voice coming out weird and tight. "She just said something really strange to me." Kent's eyebrows went up and he smiled a little. "Oh yeah? What did she say?" I told him exactly what she whispered to me, word for word. I waited for him to look shocked or angry, or at least confused. Instead, he laughed. Actually laughed. "Babe, that's just her dry humor," he said, shaking his head like I was being silly. "She does that to everyone. She probably thought she was being funny. You know how she is." I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell him that there was nothing funny about what she said, that the look in her eyes was cold and serious, that I knew the difference between a joke and a warning. But it was our wedding day. People were watching. The photographer was waiting to take more pictures. So I just nodded and let him pull me back onto the dance floor, telling myself that maybe he was right. Maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe his mother was just weird. I wish I had trusted my gut that night instead of trusting him. Over the next few weeks, strange things kept happening. Little things at first. Things I could almost explain away if I tried hard enough. Kent and I would make plans for the weekend. Maybe dinner at a nice restaurant or a movie we both wanted to see. And then suddenly those plans would change. "Oh, my mom needs help with something," he would say. Or, "Dad wants me to come look at his car." Always some excuse, always last minute. Then there were the family dinners. I would find out about them after they already happened. Kent would come home smelling like his mother's cooking, and I would ask how his day was, and he would casually mention that he had dinner with his parents. "You could have invited me," I said once, trying to keep my voice light. "It was just a quick thing," he said. "Besides, you had work." But I didn't have work that day. I had told him in the morning that I was off. He just forgot. Or maybe he didn't forget at all. The phone calls were the worst part, though. Kent would be talking on his phone in the other room, his voice low and quiet, and the second I walked in, he would say something like, "Okay, talk to you later," and hang up. Every single time. "Who was that?" I would ask. "Just my mom," he would say. Or, "Just my dad checking in." But why did he need to end the call the moment I appeared? What were they talking about that I couldn't hear? Every time I brought up feeling left out, Kent had the same answer. "Priscilla, you're being paranoid," he would say, giving me that look like I was being crazy. "My family loves you. They just need time to warm up. You know how close we are. It's an adjustment for everyone." He made it sound so reasonable. He made me feel like I was the problem, like I was the one making things weird by noticing all the weirdness. I started to doubt myself. Maybe I was being too sensitive. Maybe I was expecting too much too soon. Maybe I just needed to be patient and let them accept me in their own time. I wanted so badly to believe that. I wanted to believe that my husband loved me, and his family would eventually love me too. I wanted to believe that the woman who whispered that threat at my wedding was just playing some strange game I didn't understand. But then I found the group text. It was an accident, really. Kent had left his phone on the kitchen counter while he took a shower, and it lit up with a notification. I wasn't trying to snoop. I just glanced over and saw the preview of the message. It was from his mother, and the text said something about the timeline. I felt my stomach get tight. I picked up the phone and looked at the screen. The group chat was called Operation Fresh Start. The members were Kent, his mother, and his father Jeremiah. I was not included. I was not even mentioned. I scrolled through a few messages, my hands shaking again like they did on my wedding night. They were talking about me. They were making plans. Plans that I was clearly not supposed to know about. I heard the shower turn off and I quickly put the phone back exactly where it was, my heart racing so fast I thought I might throw up. When Kent came out of the bathroom, I smiled at him like nothing was wrong. "Hey, your phone buzzed," I said casually. "Might be your mom." He grabbed it quickly and walked into the other room to respond. I stood there in the kitchen, staring at the spot where his phone had been, and I knew. I knew that whatever was happening with his family, it wasn't just them being close or needing time to adjust. They were planning something. Something that involved me but didn't include me. Something they called Fresh Start, like I was an old problem they needed to get rid of. I had to find out what they were really planning. And this time, I wasn't going to wait for Kent to tell me. This time, I was going to find out for myself. So after finding that group chat, I knew I was done being the clueless wife. I started paying attention to every detail, every excuse, every sudden change of plans that kept me out of the loop. His mother thought she was so clever, but she had no idea I was already 3 steps ahead. I called Miracle, my best friend who had warned me about this family from the start, and told her everything. "I knew something was off with them," she said when I finished explaining. "I'm ready to help you dig." She was on my side completely. The next family dinner was in 4 days, and this time I was going in with my eyes wide open, ready to catch every lie and every secret look they thought I wouldn't notice. The 4 days passed slowly, but I used every minute to prepare myself. Miracle and I talked on the phone every night, going over what I might see and what I should look out for. She told me to stay calm no matter what happened, to observe everything but react to nothing. Let them think you're still clueless, she said. That's when they'll slip up. So when the night of the family dinner finally came, I put on a nice dress and my best fake smile and walked into that house like I didn't have a care in the world. Kent's parents lived in a big house on the edge of town, the kind of place that looked warm and welcoming from the outside, but felt cold the second you stepped through the door. His mother greeted us at the entrance with a hug that lasted a little too long, her perfume so strong it made my eyes water. "Priscilla, darling, so glad you could make it," she said in that sweet voice she always used when other people were watching. I smiled and thanked her for having us, playing my part perfectly. Dinner wasn't ready yet, so everyone scattered around the house to chat and catch up. Kent went to the living room to talk to some of his cousins who had stopped by, and I found myself drifting toward the kitchen to offer help with the food. That's when Jeremiah found me. He walked in while I was standing by the counter, pretending to look at the appetizers laid out on fancy plates. He closed the door behind him, and something about the way he did it made my skin prickle. "Priscilla," he said, his voice low and serious. "Can we talk for a second?" I turned to face him, keeping my expression neutral. "Of course," I said. "What's on your mind?" He leaned against the counter across from me and crossed his arms, looking at me like I was some kind of puzzle he was trying to figure out. "You know, Priscilla," he said slowly, "Kent had such a bright future before you came along. His mother just wants what's best for him." I felt my heart start to beat faster, but I kept my face calm. This was exactly what Miracle had warned me about. They were going to try to shake me, to make me feel small and unwanted. I couldn't let them see it was working. "What do you mean by that?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. Jeremiah smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. It was the kind of smile someone gives you when they think they know something you don't. He stepped closer and patted my shoulder like I was a child who needed guidance. "Some women are builders," he said. "Others are distractions. Figure out which one you are." Then he walked out of the kitchen like he hadn't just basically called me a problem in his son's life. I stood there for a moment, my hands gripping the edge of the counter so hard my knuckles turned white. A distraction. That's what he thought I was. Not a partner, not a wife, not someone who loved his son, just a distraction that needed to be figured out and dealt with. I wanted to scream. I wanted to march into that living room and tell everyone what he had just said to me. But I remembered what Miracle told me. Stay calm. Observe. Let them slip up. So I took a deep breath, fixed my smile, and walked back out to join the others like nothing had happened. The rest of dinner was tense, at least for me. Everyone else seemed perfectly happy, laughing at jokes and passing dishes around the table. Kent sat next to me and held my hand a few times, which would have felt nice if I didn't know what I knew. His mother kept looking at me across the table with this little smile on her face, like she was waiting for something. I ignored her and focused on eating, counting down the minutes until we could leave. But the night wasn't done with me yet. After dessert, Kent's mother caught me in the hallway as I was coming out of the bathroom. She stepped in front of me, blocking my path, and reached into her pocket. "Priscilla, dear," she said in a low voice, "I want to give you something." She pulled out a small white card and pressed it into my hand. I looked down at it. It was a business card for a divorce attorney. The name was printed in fancy letters with a phone number and address underneath. I stared at it, not believing what I was seeing. "Just in case you ever need options, dear," she said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "I keep these handy." I looked up at her, and for a second I couldn't even speak. She was smiling at me like she had just given me a gift, like she was doing me some kind of favor. "Why would I need this?" I finally asked, my voice coming out rougher than I meant it to. She tilted her head and gave me a look of fake concern. "Marriage is hard, sweetheart," she said. "Not everyone is cut out for it. I just want you to know you have options if things don't work out." Then she patted my cheek like I was a child and walked away, leaving me standing in that hallway holding a business card for a divorce lawyer that my own mother-in-law had just given me at a family dinner. My hands were shaking again. I shoved the card in my pocket and went to find Kent. He was in the living room, laughing about something with his father. I pulled him aside, away from everyone else, and showed him the card. "Your mother just gave me this," I said, trying to keep my voice quiet but firm. "She told me to keep my options open." Kent looked at the card, then looked at me, and his face did this thing where it went blank for a second before he put on a confused expression. "Priscilla, come on," he said. She was just being prepared for anything. You know how she is. She probably has cards for everything. Plumbers, electricians, whatever. "A divorce attorney?" I said, not believing what I was hearing. "She gave me a divorce attorney's card and you think that's normal?" Kent sighed like I was exhausting him. "You're making something out of nothing," he said. "She wasn't trying to upset you. She just thinks about the future a lot. It's not personal." I wanted to argue. I wanted to shake him and ask him how he could possibly think this was okay. But he was already walking back toward his family, leaving me standing there with the card still in my hand. I felt so alone in that moment, surrounded by people who were supposed to be my family now, but who clearly saw me as an outsider, an inconvenience, a problem to be solved. We left not long after that. The drive home was quiet. Kent hummed along to the radio like everything was fine while I stared out the window and thought about everything that had happened. His father had called me a distraction. His mother had handed me a divorce attorney's card. And Kent had dismissed both things like they were nothing, like I was crazy for being upset. When we got home, I told him I was tired and went to bed early. But I didn't sleep. I lay there in the dark, listening to Kent move around in the other room, and I thought about what Miracle had said. Let them slip up. Keep watching. The truth would come out eventually. I must have dozed off at some point because I woke up to the sound of Kent's voice coming from the hallway. He was on the phone, speaking quietly, but not quietly enough. I crept out of bed and moved toward the door, pressing my ear against it to listen. Mom, I told you. Give me 6 more months, he was saying. I'm working on it. My blood went cold. Working on what? What was happening in 6 months? What was he planning that his mother needed updates about? I heard him say a few more things I couldn't quite make out, and then he hung up. I quickly got back into bed and pretended to be asleep when he came into the room. He climbed in next to me and fell asleep within minutes, snoring softly like he didn't have a care in the world. But I lay there awake for hours, my mind racing, my heart pounding. 6 more months? He was working on something. And whatever it was, it involved his mother. And it definitely involved me. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't making things up. My husband was planning something with his family, something they had been working on since before we even got married. And I was going to find out exactly what it was before they had a chance to finish it. So after hearing my own husband say he was working on it, like our marriage was some problem to solve, I stopped playing nice. I started screenshotting everything, saving every text, every comment his parents made that they thought was so innocent. Miracle helped me set up a folder of evidence that would make a lawyer proud, organized by date and topic so nothing could be twisted or explained away. Kent's mother kept smiling at me like she had already won, patting my hand at dinners like I was some charity case she was tolerating until the right moment. She had no idea I was building a case while she was busy building schemes. The big family reunion was coming up in 2 weeks, and every single relative would be there. And I could not wait to see her face when the truth came out in front of everyone she was trying to impress. The reunion was still 2 weeks away, but I wasn't just sitting around waiting. I was digging. Every chance I got, I was looking for more proof, more evidence, more pieces of the puzzle that would show everyone exactly what kind of people Kent and his parents really were. One night, Kent fell asleep on the couch with his laptop still open on the coffee table. He had been working late a lot recently, or at least that's what he told me, and I guess he was too tired to close it before he passed out. I sat there for a few minutes just watching him sleep. This man I had married, this man I thought I knew, and I felt this weird mix of sadness and anger that I couldn't quite explain. Then I looked at the laptop. The screen was still lit up, showing his email inbox. I knew I shouldn't look. I knew that going through someone's private emails was crossing a line, but then I thought about all the lines they had already crossed with me. The group chat I wasn't included in, the dinner plans I was never told about, the business card for a divorce attorney, the whispered phone calls about working on it. They had been sneaking around behind my back for who knows how long. Maybe it was time I did some sneaking of my own. I picked up the laptop carefully, making sure not to wake him, and carried it into the kitchen. I sat down at the table and started scrolling through his emails, not really sure what I was looking for but knowing I would recognize it when I found it. Most of it was boring stuff. Work emails about meetings and deadlines, newsletters he had signed up for and never read, receipts from online orders. But then I found a folder labeled Family, and my heart started beating faster. I clicked on it and saw dozens of emails going back years, conversations between Kent and his mother that I had never known about. I started reading from the oldest ones, the ones from before we were even engaged, and that's when I found it. The email was from his mother, sent about 3 months after Kent and I started dating. The subject line said, "Concerns." And when I opened it, the first line made my blood run cold. "She is temporary," his mother had written. "Do not get attached." I read the whole email with my hands shaking so bad I could barely scroll. She went on and on about how I wasn't the right kind of woman for Kent, how I didn't come from the right family, how I would hold him back from the future she had planned for him. She talked about me like I was some kind of obstacle, some problem that needed to be managed until a better option came along. But the worst part wasn't her email. The worst part was Kent's reply. "I know, Mom," he had written back, "but she is useful for now. She makes me look stable for the promotion." Useful. He called me useful. Like I was a tool. Like I was something he was using to get ahead at work. All those times he told me he loved me. All those moments I thought were real. And the whole time he was telling his mother I was just temporary. Just useful. Just something to make him look good until he didn't need me anymore. I sat there at that kitchen table for what felt like hours, reading email after email, watching the whole history of their plan unfold in front of me. His mother would send suggestions about how to manage me, how to keep me happy enough to stay but not so attached that it would be hard to get rid of me later. Kent would respond with updates, telling her things were on track, and that I didn't suspect anything. They talked about me like I wasn't even a person. They talked about our relationship like it was some kind of business deal. I forwarded everything to myself. Every single email, every conversation, every piece of proof that showed exactly what they had been doing. My hands were shaking the whole time. but I made sure to send copies to my personal email, to Miracle's email, to a backup account I had made just in case. I wasn't going to let them delete this or explain it away. When I was done, I closed the laptop and put it back on the coffee table exactly where Kent had left it. He was still sleeping, still snoring, still looking like the man I thought I married instead of the stranger I was starting to realize he actually was. I went to bed that night, but I didn't sleep. I just lay there staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything I had just read, feeling like my whole life had been a lie. The next morning, I called Miracle and asked her to meet me for coffee. I couldn't tell her this stuff over the phone. I needed to see her face, needed to know that someone else was hearing this and understanding how bad it really was. We met at a little coffee shop near her apartment, one of those places with mismatched chairs and art on the walls. I got there first and sat in the corner, clutching my phone with all the screenshots I had taken. When Miracle walked in and saw my face, she knew right away something was wrong. "What happened?" she asked, sliding into the seat across from me. "Did they do something else?" I didn't even know where to start. I just handed her my phone and let her read the emails herself. I watched her face change as she scrolled through them, her eyebrows going up, her jaw getting tighter, her eyes getting wider. When she got to the part where Kent called me useful, she actually said a curse word out loud, which made the old lady at the next table give us a dirty look. "Priscilla," she said, putting down the phone and looking at me with this intense expression. "This is bad. This is really, really bad." "I know," I said, and my voice cracked a little. But part of me keeps thinking, maybe I'm overreacting? Maybe I'm reading too much into it? Maybe there's some explanation I'm missing? I needed her to tell me I wasn't crazy. I needed someone to confirm that what I was seeing was real, that I wasn't just being paranoid like Kent always said I was. Miracle reached across the table and grabbed my shoulders, her grip firm and steady. "Priscilla," she said, looking me right in the eyes, "you married into a family that sees you as a stepping stone. This is not in your head." I felt tears start to burn in my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. I had done enough crying over these people. "What am I supposed to do?" I asked. I thought this was my family now. I thought Kent was my future. And the whole time, they were just waiting for the right moment to throw me away. Miracle didn't let go of my shoulders. "You fight back," she said. "You take all this evidence and you use it. You don't let them win. You don't let them make you feel small. You show everyone exactly who they really are." I nodded slowly, feeling something shift inside me. She was right. I had been so focused on trying to save my marriage, trying to make things work, trying to be the good wife who didn't cause problems. But why was I trying to save a marriage that was never real in the first place? Why was I fighting for people who had never seen me as worth fighting for? The stakes weren't about saving my marriage anymore. That marriage had been a lie from the beginning, built on plans and schemes that I was never supposed to find out about. The stakes were about saving myself, about protecting myself from people who had looked at me and seen nothing but a tool, a stepping stone, a temporary problem to be dealt with when the time was right. Kent's mother had been right about one thing. Our love story was about to unfold, but not in the way she expected, not in the way any of them expected. I left that coffee shop feeling different than when I walked in. The sadness was still there, somewhere deep down, but it was covered by something harder now, something stronger. I had spent months feeling confused and off balance, always second-guessing myself, always wondering if I was the problem. But now I knew the truth. I knew exactly what they thought of me and exactly what they had been planning, and I was going to make sure everyone else knew too. The family reunion was getting closer. Every relative, every aunt and uncle and cousin, every person Kent's mother had ever tried to impress, they were all going to be there. And so was I, with all my evidence, with all my proof, with Miracle by my side and the truth on my lips. They thought I was temporary. They thought I was just useful for now. They thought I would disappear quietly when they were done with me. They were about to find out just how wrong they were. So after reading that I was useful for now, something inside me went cold and calm. I stopped crying and started planning. I quietly met with a lawyer Miracle recommended, someone outside their social circle, and learned exactly what I would need if this went south. Meanwhile, Kent's mother kept inviting me to bonding lunches, where she would drop hints about how hard marriage was, and how sometimes the kindest thing is to walk away. She thought she was planting seeds. She had no idea I was letting her dig her own grave. I smiled through every lunch, took mental notes of every manipulation, and waited. The family reunion was 1 week away now, and every aunt, uncle, and cousin would be there to witness what happens when you underestimate the woman you tried to erase. The week before the reunion, something strange happened. Kent started being unusually sweet to me. It started on Monday when I came home from running errands and found a bouquet of flowers sitting on the kitchen counter. Not just any flowers either, but the nice kind from the fancy flower shop downtown, the ones that come wrapped in that pretty paper with the ribbon tied around them. There was a little card attached that said, "Just because I love you," in his handwriting, and for a second I just stood there staring at it like I didn't know what to do. He hadn't bought me flowers since before our wedding, and even then it was only because his mother had told him it was expected. "Do you like them?" Kent asked, coming up behind me and wrapping his arms around my waist. "I saw them on my way home and thought of you." I turned around to face him, trying to read his expression, trying to figure out what game he was playing now. But he looked sincere. He looked like the man I had fallen in love with, The one who used to surprise me with little gifts and plan special dates, just because he wanted to see me smile. They're beautiful, I said, because they were. Thank you. He kissed my forehead and told me he had made reservations at my favorite restaurant for Friday night, and that maybe we should start thinking about taking a vacation together, just the two of us. Somewhere warm where we could relax and reconnect. I know things have been weird lately, he said, and his voice sounded so gentle and sorry, with work and my family and everything, but I want to focus on us. You're what matters to me, Priscilla. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to scream at him, wanted to throw all the evidence I had collected in his face and demand to know why he was pretending now after everything he had done. But another part of me, the part that still remembered why I married him in the first place, that part wanted so badly to believe him. Maybe I had been wrong. Maybe I had been reading too much into everything. Maybe his parents were the problem and he was just caught in the middle, trying to keep everyone happy. Maybe he really did love me and he just had a terrible way of showing it. The rest of that week, came home early from work a few times to cook dinner for us. He asked about my day and actually listened to my answers instead of just nodding while he checked his phone. He held my hand when we watched TV at night, rubbing little circles on my palm with his thumb the way he used to when we first started dating. On Thursday night, we went out to dinner at this nice place with the good pasta and the candles on all the tables. It felt almost like a date, like we were back at the beginning of our relationship when everything was new and exciting and I thought I had found my person. Halfway through the meal, Kent reached across the table and took my hand in his. He looked at me with those brown eyes that I used to think I could trust, and he said, Priscilla, I know my family can be a lot, but you know I chose you, right? You are my wife. My heart did this weird thing where it felt tight and hopeful at the same time. I know, I said, squeezing his hand back. I just want us to be a team. I want to feel like I'm part of your family, not like I'm on the outside looking in. He nodded and promised that things would be different from now on. He said he was going to talk to his mother about being more welcoming, that he was going to set boundaries, that he understood how hard it had been for me. He said all the right words. He made all the right promises. And sitting there in that restaurant with the candlelight making everything look soft and romantic, I almost believed him. I wanted to believe him so bad that it hurt. I wanted to believe that the emails I had found were old news, that he had changed since then, that maybe he had started our relationship for the wrong reasons, but had fallen for me along the way. People change, right? Feelings grow. Maybe the man sitting across from me now, holding my hand and looking at me like I mattered, maybe this was the real Kent. Maybe his mother had been pulling his strings this whole time and he was finally ready to cut them loose. We went home that night and things felt good between us for the first time in months. I started to wonder if maybe I should just delete all that evidence and try to move forward. Maybe exposing everything at the reunion would only make things worse. Maybe there was a chance to fix this, to build something real out of all the mess. I was starting to actually hope again. And then Miracle called. It was Friday afternoon, the day before the reunion, and I was in the middle of picking out what to wear when my phone started buzzing. Miracle's name flashed on the screen and I answered right away, expecting her to ask about our final plans for the next day. Hey, what's up? I said, holding a dress up to myself in the mirror. Priscilla, she said, and something about her voice made me put the dress down. She sounded weird, serious, like she was about to tell me something I didn't want to hear. What's wrong? I asked, sitting down on the edge of my bed. I found something, she said, and I need you to hear it from me before you hear it from anyone else. My stomach got that tight feeling again, the one I had been living with for months, the one that had just started to go away. Just tell me, I said. Miracle took a deep breath. Kent has been house hunting, she said, with his mother. They've been looking at apartments for the past few weeks. I felt like all the air left my lungs. What? I whispered. One of my coworkers is a real estate agent, Miracle continued. She mentioned that she had been showing places to some guy and his mom, said they were looking for a nice one-bedroom for when he got his fresh start. She showed me a picture of them at one of the viewings because she thought the mom was being super pushy. Priscilla, it was Kent, and the apartment is in his name only. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I just sat there on my bed, holding the phone to my ear, feeling like the floor had dropped out from under me. A one-bedroom apartment. In his name only. For his fresh start. All those sweet words, all those flowers, all those promises about choosing me and being a team, they were lies. All of it was lies. He was still planning to leave me. He was still working with his mother to get rid of me. The only difference was that now he was being nice about it, probably to make himself look better when the truth came out. Priscilla? Miracle said. Are you still there? Yeah, I said, but my voice sounded far away, like it was coming from someone else. I'm here. I'm so sorry, she said. I know this week has been confusing with him being so nice and everything, but I couldn't let you go into that reunion tomorrow without knowing the truth. The truth. The truth was that my husband had been apartment hunting while he was holding my hand and telling me I was his wife. The truth was that every kind word, every romantic dinner, every promise about setting boundaries with his mother had been part of the act. The truth was that I had almost fallen for it. I had almost let myself believe that things could be different, that he could be different, that maybe love was enough to fix what was broken between us. But love wasn't going to fix anything because there was no love. There never had been. I was useful for now, remember? I was temporary. I was just something he needed to manage until the timing was right for his fresh start. The hope I had been holding on to, that tiny little flame that had flickered back to life over the past week, it didn't just go out. It crumbled. It turned to ash and blew away. And in its place was something else. Something harder. Something colder. Something that would not break again. Priscilla, Miracle said carefully, what are you going to do? I looked at myself in the mirror across the room. I saw a woman who had been lied to, manipulated, and played for a fool by the people who were supposed to be her family. But I also saw a woman who had spent months gathering evidence, building a case, preparing for exactly this moment. The reunion is tomorrow, I said, and my voice was steady now. Calm. Certain. Nothing changes. We stick to the plan. Are you sure? Miracle asked. After everything he just did, playing nice like that, I would understand if you needed more time. But I didn't need more time. I had already wasted enough time hoping and waiting and giving second chances to people who never deserved them. Kent and his parents had been planning my exit for years. They had called me temporary, called me useful, called me a distraction. And now my dear husband was looking at apartments for his new single life while buying me flowers and promising me vacations. They thought they could smile to my face while stabbing me in the back. They thought I was too stupid or too trusting to figure out what they were doing. They thought wrong. I'm sure, I told Miracle. Tomorrow, everyone finds out the truth. And this time, I'm the one who gets to decide how the story ends. So after discovering Kent was already planning his single life while holding my hand and calling me his wife, I stopped feeling sad. I felt ready. I spent the next 3 days gathering every piece of evidence into a single presentation on my laptop. Emails, texts, screenshots of the apartment listing, the business card his mother had given me. Miracle came over every night and helped me rehearse exactly what I would say and when I would say it, timing every word so it would land like a punch. Kent's mother had been planning this for years, pulling strings and making schemes, but she made one mistake. She thought I would go quietly. She thought I would be too embarrassed to make a scene in front of the whole family. The reunion was in 2 days, and I had a front row seat reserved for the truth. The morning of the reunion finally came, and I woke up before my alarm even went off. I had barely slept, but I wasn't tired. I was wired, like my whole body was buzzing with electricity, ready for what was about to happen. I got out of bed quietly and started getting ready, picking out the outfit I had chosen days ago, a nice blue dress that made me feel strong and put together. I did my makeup carefully, taking my time, making sure I looked like someone who had her life under control, because I did. For the first time in months, I knew exactly what was coming, and exactly what I was going to do about it. I was in the bathroom putting the finishing touches on my hair, when Kent appeared in the doorway. He was still in his pajamas, his hair all messy from sleep, and he had this look on his face that I couldn't quite read. Hey, he said, leaning against the doorframe. Can we talk for a second? I kept my eyes on the mirror, adjusting a strand of hair that didn't really need adjusting. Sure, I said. What's up? He was quiet for a moment, like he was trying to figure out how to say whatever he was about to say. Then he took a breath and said, I was thinking maybe you should stay home today. I stopped what I was doing and looked at him in the mirror. Stay home? I repeated, keeping my voice calm and curious. Why would I do that? Kent shifted his weight from one foot to the other, looking uncomfortable. It's just, you've seemed really stressed lately, he said. And my mom mentioned she was worried about you. She thinks maybe all the family stuff has been too much, and maybe it would be better if you took the day to rest. His mom was worried about me. Right. His mom who had given me a divorce attorney's card. His mom who had called me temporary. His mom who had been helping him look at apartments for his fresh start. She was so worried about me that she wanted to make sure I wasn't there when she pulled off whatever final move she had planned. I turned around to face Kent, and I smiled at him. Not a fake smile, not a forced smile, but a real one. Because in that moment, I realized just how scared they all were. They could feel that something was different about me, that I wasn't the confused and desperate wife I had been a few weeks ago. They didn't know what I had found or what I was planning, but they knew something was wrong, and their solution was to try to keep me away from the reunion entirely. That's so sweet of you to worry about me, I said, my voice light and easy. But I wouldn't miss this for the world. I watched his face as I said it, and I saw exactly what I expected to see. His expression flickered, just for a second, with something that looked a lot like panic. His eyes got a little wider, his smile got a little tighter, and I could practically see the wheels turning in his head as he tried to figure out what to do next. Are you sure? He asked, and there was a nervous edge to his voice now. I really think you should take it easy. There will be other family events. I'm sure, I said, turning back to the mirror to finish my hair. Your whole family is going to be there. I want to see everyone. Besides, your mom has been planning this for weeks. It would be rude not to show up. Kent stood there for another few seconds, like he was trying to think of something else to say, some other excuse that would convince me to stay home. But I didn't give him the chance. I finished getting ready, grabbed my purse, and walked past him out of the bathroom. We should leave soon, I said over my shoulder. Don't want to be late. The drive to his parents' house felt longer than usual, even though it was the same route we always took. Kent was quiet the whole way, his hands gripping the steering wheel a little too tight, his jaw clenched like he was worried about something. I sat in the passenger seat and looked out the window, watching the houses go by, feeling calmer than I had felt in months. When we pulled up to the house, there were already a bunch of cars parked along the street. The reunion was in the backyard, and I could hear music and voices coming from behind the house. It sounded like a party, like everyone was having a good time, like this was just another happy family gathering. I got out of the car and smoothed down my dress, then walked toward the front door with Kent trailing behind me. His mother was waiting at the entrance, wearing a fancy dress and a big smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "There you are," she said loudly, throwing her arms open for a hug. "I was starting to think you weren't coming." I stepped into her hug, letting her wrap her arms around me, smelling that same strong perfume she always wore. And then she leaned in close to my ear, so close that no one else could hear, and she whispered, "Last chance to bow out gracefully, sweetheart." I felt a chill go down my spine, but I didn't pull away. I didn't flinch. Instead, I leaned in even closer and whispered back, "I wouldn't dream of missing your big moment." I felt her whole body stiffen. I pulled back from the hug and looked at her face, watching her eyes narrow as she tried to figure out what I meant by that. For just a second, I saw something flicker across her expression, something like confusion or maybe even fear. But then she smoothed it over with that fake smile of hers and stepped aside to let us in. "Well," she said, her voice a little strained now, "make yourselves at home." Kent and I walked through the house toward the backyard, passing relatives I barely knew and neighbors I had only met once or twice. Everyone was smiling and chatting, eating food from the big buffet table, drinking lemonade and iced tea from plastic cups. It looked like the perfect family party. It looked like something out of a magazine. I wondered how many of these people knew what kind of woman was hosting them. I wondered if any of them had ever seen the real her, the one who whispered threats at weddings and handed out divorce attorney cards like party favors. We had barely made it into the backyard when Jeremiah appeared out of nowhere, stepping in front of me with that same serious expression he always had. "Priscilla," he said, putting his hand on my arm, "can I borrow you for a minute? I think we should talk." I knew exactly what he wanted to talk about. He wanted to try one more time to convince me to leave, to give up, to accept my role as the temporary distraction who wasn't worth fighting for. He probably had a whole speech prepared about what was best for Kent, about how sometimes the kindest thing is to walk away, about how I should think about my own future instead of clinging to a marriage that wasn't working, but I wasn't interested in hearing it. "Actually, I was just about to find my friend," I said, gently pulling my arm away from his grip. "She said she would be here early to help set up. Maybe we can talk later?" Before he could respond, I was already moving, weaving through the crowd of relatives, heading toward the back corner of the yard where I could see a familiar face. Miracle was standing by the dessert table, exactly where we had planned, and she was not alone. Next to her was a projector on a small stand, the kind they use in offices for presentations. It was pointed at the big white fence that ran along the side of the yard, the same fence that would be visible from almost anywhere in the backyard. And sitting on the table next to the projector was my laptop, already open, already connected, already loaded with everything we had put together over the past weeks. When Miracle saw me coming, her face lit up with a smile that was equal parts nervous and excited. "You made it," she said, pulling me into a quick hug. I was starting to get worried. "I almost didn't," I said, glancing over my shoulder to make sure no one was listening. "Kent tried to convince me to stay home. Said his mom was worried about me." Miracle rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might get stuck. "Of course she did," she said. "She probably wanted to do the whole reunion without you, so she could tell everyone her version of the story first. Get ahead of whatever she thinks you might say." I nodded, looking at the laptop screen. At the first slide of the presentation we had spent days putting together, it showed a screenshot of that very first email, the one where his mother had called me temporary and Kent had agreed I was useful for now. "Is everything ready?" I asked. "Projector works, laptop is charged, slides are loaded," Miracle said, checking off items on her fingers. "I borrowed this thing from my job and told them it was for a community event, which is technically true, I guess. This definitely counts as a community service." I almost laughed at that. Almost. But I was too focused on what was about to happen, too aware of all the people around me who had no idea what was coming. Kent's mother was on the other side of the yard, talking to a group of older relatives, probably telling them all about how wonderful her son was, and how proud she was of her family. Jeremiah was watching me from across the lawn, his arms crossed, his face suspicious, and Kent was by the buffet table, pretending to look at the food but really keeping one eye on me, probably wondering what I was up to. They all thought they had won. They all thought I was just going to stand here and smile and play my part until they were ready to throw me away. They had no idea that everything was about to change. Miracle squeezed my hand and gave me a look that said she was ready whenever I was. I took a deep breath and squeezed back. It was time. So there I stood in the backyard of Kent's childhood home, surrounded by 50 relatives who had no idea what was about to happen. Kent's mother clinked her glass to give a toast about family bonds, and how proud she was of her son, and I waited, my heart beating steady and strong. Miracle gave me the signal from across the yard, a small nod that told me everything was ready. Kent kept glancing at me nervously, and I just smiled back like everything was fine, like I was the happy wife enjoying a nice family party. His mother raised her glass high and said in that sweet voice she used when people were watching, "To Kent and Priscilla, may their love story continue to unfold." That was my cue. I stood up and walked over to the dessert table where Miracle had set up the projector, connected my laptop with hands that did not shake, turned to face the crowd of confused relatives, and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Actually, I have a toast of my own." And a slideshow. It was showtime. The projector hummed to life and the first slide appeared on the white fence, huge and bright and impossible to ignore. It was a screenshot of that email, the one that had broken something inside me when I first read it, and now everyone in the backyard could see it too. His mother's words were right there in black and white for the whole family to read. "She is temporary. Do not get attached." And right below it was Kent's reply. "I know, Mom, but she is useful for now. She makes me look stable for the promotion." For a second, nobody moved. Nobody said anything. It was like the whole backyard had turned into a photograph. Everyone frozen in place with their drinks halfway to their mouths and their eyes glued to that fence. Then the gasps started. Little sounds of shock rippling through the crowd like waves, people turning to look at each other, then at Kent, then at his mother, then back at the screen. "What is this?" someone whispered, but I didn't stop to answer. I just clicked to the next slide, and the next, and the next. I showed them the emails where Jeremiah had coached Kent on how to handle me, where he had written things like, "Keep her happy enough to stay, but not so attached that it becomes a problem later." And, "After your promotion goes through, we can start the phase-out process." I showed them screenshots of the group chat called Operation Fresh Start, and the messages about timelines and plans that I was never supposed to see. I showed them the apartment listing that Miracle had found, the one-bedroom place in Kent's name only that he had been looking at with his mother while he was buying me flowers and promising me vacations. Every click brought another piece of evidence, another email, another text, another lie exposed for everyone to see. The crowd kept making sounds, gasps and whispers and a few words that I probably should not repeat. But I kept going. I kept clicking. I had spent months feeling crazy, feeling like maybe I was imagining things, feeling like maybe I was the problem. Now everyone could see the truth with their own eyes. Kent's face had gone white. I mean really white. Like all the blood had drained out of it at once. He was staring at the fence like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Like maybe if he stared hard enough the words would change into something else. And then something in him seemed to snap, and he started moving toward me with his hands reaching out for the laptop. "Give me that," he shouted, his voice high and panicked. "You had no right to go through my emails. This is private. This is—" But he never got to finish that sentence because his uncle, a big guy with gray hair and a stern face, stepped right into his path and put a hand on his chest to stop him. "Hold on there," the uncle said, his voice calm but firm. "Let her finish. We need to hear this." Kent tried to push past him, but the uncle did not budge. He just stood there like a wall, keeping Kent away from me and the laptop, giving me the space I needed to keep going. "Uncle, you don't understand," Kent said, his voice getting desperate now. "She's twisting things around. She's making it sound worse than it is. Mom, tell him." But when everyone looked at Kent's mother, she was not the calm and put-together woman who had been giving toasts about family bonds just a few minutes ago. Her face was red and blotchy, tears streaming down her cheeks, and she was pointing at me with a shaking finger. "You little snake!" she screamed, her voice cracking. "You went through our private conversations. You took everything out of context. This is not what it looks like. Tell them all that this is not what it looks like." She was looking around at her family, at all the aunts and uncles and cousins who were staring at her with shock on their faces, and she was begging them to believe her. But then her own sister, a woman who looked a lot like her but with kinder eyes, stepped forward and shook her head slowly. "Margaret," she said, and her voice was cold in a way that made the whole backyard go quiet. "I always knew you were controlling, but this is sociopathic." The word hung in the air like a bomb that had just gone off. Kent's mother made this sound like she had been slapped, her hand going to her chest like she was having trouble breathing. "How can you say that to me?" she cried. "I'm your sister. You're supposed to be on my side." But her sister just shook her head again. "I'm on the side of what's right," she said. "And what you did to this girl is not right. It's cruel. It's calculated. And you should be ashamed of yourself." I clicked to the last few slides, showing the business card for the divorce attorney that his mother had given me at that family dinner, showing the text where Kent had told his mother to give him 6 more months because he was working on it. By the time I was done, there was nothing left to hide. Every scheme, every lie, every manipulation was out there for the whole family to see. The backyard was completely silent now, except for the sound of his mother crying and Jeremiah trying to comfort her, telling her it would be okay, that they would figure this out, that the family would understand once they had a chance to explain. But the family did not look like they wanted explanations. They looked like they had just found out that people they loved and trusted had been hiding something ugly underneath all those smiles and Sunday dinners. 3 of Kent's cousins walked over to me one by one, young people around my age who I had only met a handful of times at events like this. The first one, a woman with curly hair and kind eyes, took my hands in hers and said, "Priscilla, I am so sorry. I had no idea they were doing this to you. This is awful." The second one, a guy who looked like he might be around Kent's age, shook his head and said, "I always thought something was off about the way they talked about you, but I never imagined it was this bad. You deserve so much better than this." The third one, a younger girl who couldn't have been more than 20, actually hugged me and whispered, "My aunt has always been mean, but I never knew she could be this evil. I'm really glad you showed everyone the truth. I thanked them all, feeling this weird mix of relief and sadness and something else I couldn't quite name. It felt good to finally be believed. It felt good to have people on my side, people who could see what had been done to me and understood that I wasn't crazy or paranoid or making things up. But it also felt heavy, knowing that this family was never going to be the same after today, knowing that I had been the one to tear the curtain back and show everyone what was hiding behind it. Then Kent's grandmother walked over. She was a small woman, probably in her 80s, with white hair and a face that had seen a lot of years. She moved slowly, using a cane to help her walk, and everyone kind of stepped aside to let her pass like she was royalty or something. She stopped in front of Kent's mother and just looked at her for a long moment, not saying anything, just looking. "Mom," Kent's mother said, her voice shaky and small. "Mom, please, you have to understand. I was just trying to protect Kent. I was just trying to make sure he had the best life possible. I was just—" "Stop," the grandmother said, and even though her voice was quiet, it cut through all the noise like a knife. "Just stop talking." Kent's mother closed her mouth, more tears running down her face, her whole body shaking like she was falling apart from the inside out. The grandmother shook her head slowly, her eyes sad and disappointed in a way that seemed to hurt more than any angry words could have. "You are a disgrace," she said. "I raised you better than this. I taught you to treat people with kindness and respect, not to scheme and manipulate and throw away a young woman like she's garbage. I am ashamed of you." Then she turned and walked away, not looking back, leaving Kent's mother standing there with her mouth open and her face crumbling. I had never seen anyone look so completely destroyed. All her power, all her schemes, all her plans and manipulations, none of it mattered anymore. Her own mother had just called her a disgrace in front of everyone she had ever tried to impress. I looked for Kent and found him standing alone by the fence on the far side of the yard. He wasn't trying to argue anymore. He wasn't trying to explain or defend himself or grab the laptop. He was just standing there with his arms hanging at his sides, looking at the ground like he couldn't bring himself to meet anyone's eyes. His family was looking at him like they had never seen him before, like they were trying to figure out how the person they thought they knew could have done the things they had just seen on that screen. His cousins who used to joke around with him at parties were keeping their distance. His aunts and uncles who used to pat him on the back and tell him how proud they were whispering to each other and shaking their heads. Even Jeremiah had stopped trying to comfort his wife, and was just staring at his son with this expression that I couldn't quite read, somewhere between anger and disappointment, and something that might have been shame. Kent was alone, completely and totally alone, surrounded by his own family but cut off from all of them, standing in the middle of everything he had tried so hard to protect, and watching it fall apart around him. Miracle appeared at my side and put her arm around my shoulders. "You did it," she said quietly. "It's over." I nodded, but I couldn't stop looking at Kent. Part of me expected to feel happy, to feel like I had won, to feel satisfied that justice had been served, and the bad guys had gotten what they deserved. But mostly I just felt tired and sad and ready for this whole thing to be done. "Let's go," I said, closing my laptop and tucking it under my arm. "I don't need to be here anymore." Miracle nodded and we started walking toward the side gate that led to the front of the house. People moved out of our way as we passed, some of them reaching out to touch my arm or whisper words of support, others just watching with wide eyes like they still couldn't believe what they had just witnessed. I didn't look back at Kent. I didn't look back at his mother or his father or anyone else. I just kept walking, one foot in front of the other, heading toward the gate and the street and whatever came next. Behind me, I could hear voices rising as the family started to react, people arguing and crying and demanding explanations. But that wasn't my problem anymore. That was their mess to clean up, their lies to untangle, their relationships to repair or break apart. I had done what I came to do, and now it was time for me to leave this family behind.